back tomorrow. And I want to really clarify, tomorrow's about grief, but it's not necessarily about you grieving. It's part of it. But the other side of that is being able to partner or accompany people that are going through grief. So it's a two-part. Somebody can get it, whether you're grieving yourself or have grieved, or whether you need to partner, come alongside somebody that's grieving. It's going to be great information tomorrow. So if you haven't signed up for anything tomorrow and want to, you can just come see me at some point. I'll jot you down, and we have room tomorrow if you'd like to continue that and you have not already signed up. So please feel free to do that. Nancy, thank you so much. It was good to see you. So what we're going to go into next is kind of a natural progression, right? We got taken care of. We've downsized. We're in cozier places. We've got all our documents put in place. And so now we need to be thinking about funeral arrangements and final resting places and things like that. So what we're going to do is start with just understanding cemetery planning, because a lot of people think that cemeteries are just simply you go in, you pick a grave, and everything's fine. And I can tell you, coming from my side of the industry where we're creating lasting visions of love and putting those tangible granite memorials on grave sites, I've had so many people come in to me and say, hey, I want to get an upright monument. Well, what cemetery are you in? Such and such cemetery. You can't have an upright monument in that cemetery. Well, why not? So what Angie can do is she's going, and this is Angie Bowling. She's with Woodland Cemetery in Arboretum. She's the office manager at the cemetery, and she is going to be able to go through kind of explaining the nuances and the understanding of cemeteries, individual plots and lots and all of that thing in cemeteries, so that you guys, when you're going out and looking for final resting place, can make informed decisions and don't end up 15 years from now going, what do you mean I can't have that? So with that, I would love to introduce Angie Bowling from Woodland.
Good morning. How many of you have been in the situation of making arrangements for a funeral? Oh, good amount. How many of you in that group had everything prearranged for you? So 2 of you. So you know that what the day is like. You go to the funeral home and you spend maybe 3 or 4 hours with them, if you're lucky. And then sometimes they'll call and make an arrangement for you to come to me afterwards. Your brain is mush by the time you get through all of our meetings. So it is a little bit of a conundrum at the end when you get to like Dodds and you want to memorialize your person and you're like, well, wait a minute, I can't have this color, I can't do this, I can't do this. We try to put it on the paperwork, but how many of you have looked at that paperwork since you completed it? Did you ever go into those folders and look through and see what it was that you signed? Or use the map that the cemetery gave you? Probably not. So pre-arrangement, it does help you get through a lot of that. Cuts down on the time, and it gives you the time to actually think about things instead of having to make those quick, arrangements. And then you're like, okay, after everything is done, I saw the greens on the ground. I don't actually know where the grave is. I think I know where, my land markers are, but now I don't remember them. So by doing pre-arrangements, you can have all of that ahead of yourself so that when you go there, at least you have a little clearer of an image of what you're looking for. So if you haven't been to Woodland, this is our front entry. Administration are on the left in this picture. The building is this one here. And then the Tiffany Chapel, which has been finally renovated. So it will be open tonight. We've already held a couple of services in there. We've had our president's wedding in there, and we've done several dinners in there. So
it's gorgeous.
It is something to check out if you're over there. All right. So decisions. Your decision will always start with one of 2 things. Are you going to be a casket, or are you going to be cremated? Those are your 2 options. I've heard many a times people are like, I'm already going to burn once, I'm not going to burn again. So if you don't want cremation, then that's an easy one. But if you haven't made those decisions, it makes all of this arrangement quite difficult. The other thing is like my parents, my dad doesn't want cremated, my mom does. Can that still be done? Of course. There's many different ways to get around that, as well as, do you want to be in the ground or are you going to be in the mausoleum? So that's what we're going to go through today. We also want to think about, what does your service look like? So I just had last weekend my sister-in-law's father's, and we did a memorial service, but the cards that we gave out didn't have the obituary on it. We didn't have his birth date or his death date on it. It was his moment of pride when he caught a fish. And that was on it, on the front. And the backside was The Rose, the song lyrics to The Rose. And the whole night was just a celebration. So what do you want yours to look like? Are you military? So like in the picture, do you want your military service being shown? Do you want something more traditional? Do you want a church service? Do you not want a church service? All of these things you need to keep in mind. And here we just kind of see again that personalization that you can make. So again, I talked about casket versus cremation. Here in Dayton, we're still pretty high in casket. I would say that out of the 10 services that we did last week, still probably 6 of those were a casket burial. So just depending on your beliefs and your religion, we'll see that happening. But throughout the nation, we are seeing cremation taking over. Another big topic. How many people have asked about green burial in this room? Have you ever thought about it? All right, so I do have a handout. Woodland, we call it What Shade Are You? So I won't go through it all too quickly, or I'll go through it quickly. But by shade, it's, what is it that you want? Some people don't want to be cremated because that's not a shade of green that they want. Some people want a casket made out of wicker. Some people want muslin. All of these things can be done at Woodland. Most cemeteries can accommodate those. We do see with Calvary, they have the ad for Sister Kateri Garden. Woodland is developing an area like that, and that's in our back acreage, which is what these pictures are of right now. We haven't decided what the memorialization will look like, but we will be offering where you can be placed in a muslin cloth directly into the ground, if that is what you like. If you want a memorial, technically that's not green. You think of just going back to the wild and letting the wild prairie happen. So it's just, we'll have those options for you. It's just what shade do you want that green to be? Woodland does require, for most burials right now, an outer burial container, which is the box here on the right-hand side. That allows for the equipment to go over the grave space without having any of that caving going on. So when we talk about green, we're talking about that we're not taking equipment over that. So we're not going to be mowing that area. We're trying to keep heavy equipment off of that so everything can return back to nature. The burial container actually allows for us to take those mowers over it, as well as any of the equipment that we need to dig the holes with. So with earth burial, you are thinking about that as a cost when you are doing a traditional casket burial. The cost that you need for burial, being cremation or for a casket, is the space and what we call interment fee, but most people are like, what is that? You'll know it as open and close. There's more to open and close than just, digging a hole. It is the recording of your burial, and it's the perpetual care is also going in. So we're mowing that grave. If you ever go out there in the winter and there's snow, we're removing the snow from the roads for you. We're blowing the leaves, all of that. It's all part of that, plus paying our staff. So that's what's coming out of that.
Picking up sticks after windstorms.
We love our volunteers for that one though. And then the other as Neil pointed out, memorialization. So we'll always try to keep telling you, in this space that you've chosen, this is what you can have, but it is not a part of the cost. If you've renovated a kitchen and you've bought a kitchen countertop out of granite, you know, you have your tier A and your tier G. I just went through this. Tier A is a nice cost. Tier G is something astronomical. So it's like, what color do you want? At Woodland, we're very historical. If you've driven through the majority of the property, you'll notice our primary color is, anybody want to take a guess? Not Neil.
Right.
Gray, yep. A lot of times I'm telling you, you can pick gray, gray, and gray. Light, medium, and dark. And then some areas will have pink, but right across the street, it may have red. If it's not in that section, you can't have it. So you have to make those considerations beforehand. If you want a statue on your monument, but there's no statuary in the area, where we will not allow it to happen. You want a bench, we always call them single cheekers. How many of you have a 12-inch seat? So a single bench is not permitted at Woodland at all. It has to span at least 2 grades. So these are all conversations and costs that you have to take into consideration. The other thing is location. It's all about location. Just like when you're buying a house, this is your permanent resident. So I had brought up some of our famous residents. Some people want to be by the Wright brothers. So that's the one in the lower middle here. And some people don't know it, but James Middleton Cox is buried at Woodland, as well as deeds. So sometimes you want to be around those historic figures. Sometimes your family is in that section, so you want to be close to them. We try to accommodate that. It's just a matter of, again, what are you choosing? Cremation will be a lot easier for us to accommodate than a casket burial. If we're full in the area, I can't do anything with you. So flat versus upright, Neil mentioned that. We have areas laid out for all of it, but everything is laid out particularly for those monuments. So if you purchase a flush marker grave, there is no going up. I'm having a conversation with a family right now. The daughter was not in the meeting. However, she's mad that grandpa can't have an upright monument, but mom purchased the space for a flush marker. And it's, you know, I would love to be able to say to somebody, pay the extra money, but the way things are laid out is there's a reason for that. There's the spacing and the way the equipment has to go through. Things get damaged, and with the equipment going through, if you want to, you know, sacrifice a monument on a piece of equipment, you know, we're trying to keep that away from happening. So, I mean, there are true reasons. It's not that we're being devils and it's like, haha, we're having fun with you today. It is all laid out that way. Another option would be to go into a mausoleum. So we have private mausoleums and the public mausoleum. Public mausoleum, the picture's a little dark, but as you come in the main gates, it's a large building on the right. Actually, if you're gonna be there tonight, the food trucks will be up at the mausoleum. In here, we hold crypts. Anybody know what a crypt is? What?
It's a little slab.
What goes in a crypt?
The body, the remains, the
The
casket.
casket, yes. So crypts are for caskets. Niches are for cremations. And a columbarium is a collection of niches. But here in this picture, on the lower part, this is James Riddy's mausoleum. So you can do private mausoleums as well as public. So you can have your family in a mausoleum, or you could just have the public mausoleum. So again, it's making a choice. Just for fun, how much do you think a mausoleum goes for today? A private mausoleum, just the building. Anybody?
50 grand.
50?
250.
250? Okay. Neil?
Getting warm, I would say starting out, you're probably looking at least $300,000 to $350,000. A built walk-in 2-person, 2 to 3 crypt mausoleum.
Then you gotta buy the space on top of it. So you're probably looking at $500,000 once everything's said and done. So, because I'll have so many people coming in asking for these, and then you tell them that, no, you can't take a mortgage out. I'm not gonna load it with $500,000.
50,000 will get you the bronze door.
Yeah.
But
So it, again, this is a startling cost, because most people don't know. Like if when I was in retail and I said to you, you want a leather jacket, how much do you want to spend? You could be like, Angie, 1,000 is too much, 200 I'll do. Yes, Chuck.
When's the last time you had a private mausoleum?
I have one on sale right now, built in 1990. Anybody want to buy it? It's $284,000. That includes the land as well.
It's empty.
Mhm.
They didn't use it.
No, we built it in case somebody would
Hoping
want
somebody would buy it.
is it garden or walk-in?
Walk-in.
Is it new or used?
It's new. No one's ever been in it, but it does not have any running water, and there is no electric. Because I've had somebody say, "Well, heck, I'll just move in there."
It's a tiny house.
Right. Exactly. Tiny house.
But boy, does it hold up during tornadoes.
Right. So moving from casket to cremation, in the mausoleum, our public mausoleum, we have glass fronted niches and we have marble fronted niches. I always say glass front, if you ever look at a glass front, you're seeing the person's personality. You can pick any urn as long as it fits in that niche. Please pick your niche first, then your urn. It's very difficult to find a niche to fit a 12-inch urn. It's almost impossible. But anyway, so the glass is showing your personality. What you did, your hobbies. If you were married, you can put a picture in there so I can see what you look like. I have people making their own urns. Husbands have made them for their wives. It's been a family effort. I mean, it's fabulous to see. But then sometimes people don't want that. It could be a cost. Yes, the glass front's a little more expensive, but really it's where it's sitting in the wall. But with the marble fronts, like on the bottom one, I always say it's a time capsule. Now you can, I don't care how much you shove in there, stuff it full. As long as I can get that front on it, I'm good. Gotcha.
Are there different sizes?
Yes. So we'll have for 2 people or we'll have single. And then depending on the niche size, so I have some that are 24 inches wide. Depending on your urn, we could put 3 urns in there. Again, it's all thinking about what our spacing is. In the marble front, really it's max 2 in those guys. But like I was saying with the marble front, I've had people put the family Bible in there. I've had kids draw pictures for grandma and grandpa. So these are all, that's why it's a time capsule. It just all goes in there with them. And, they stay. That's what stays in there with them. So this, again, is thinking about it. I always say when it comes to the cemetery, we're decorating that urn. Doesn't matter if we're closing it up and you can't see it. That's what people are spending time on, is what they're putting in there. And then back a little bit to green for a minute. For cremation, we have our fountain garden. If you've ever been to Woodland, there's the pond down there. We unearthed a garden with a fountain. So what we do is you can pour the cremains directly into the ground, or you can use a biodegradable urn. Nothing in that garden has a nameplate on it. All the names go on the obelisk here. So that's your memorial for that. Whereas we also have on a wall down in the lower section, the wall top is engraved with the person's name. So your burial happens in front of the name, and then the engraving, so that's your memorial is all put in together. That's really the only place in a ground burial that I have like that, where memorial and the spaces together. But again, at Woodland, we don't care if you have an urn vault. That used to be something that we said you had to have. It's no longer a requirement. So you can have an urn vault, so you can put your urn in one of those miniature vaults. You can put the urn directly in the ground. You can pour the cremains in the ground. It's up to you on how you want that to happen. But in the mausoleum, of course, you have to have an urn. I can't have just cremated remains poured into it. I know, no piles. So real quick, I don't know where I am in time. 10 minutes. So options. Have anybody considered cremation? Okay. Quite a few of you. Have you thought about what's going to happen to you after? Okay. So what's going to happen with you? Where do you go?
Not sure.
Chuck, where are you going?
Some at home with her and some at cemetery in Woodland.
All right.
By the way, I was a Woodland tour guide.
I know, that's why I know you.
So I know.
And you said you had, or yeah,
My husband's buried in a casket, so we'll go with him.
it's called a second right. That's why cremation is so much easier for us, because we can do a burial on top of an existing burial, be it cremation or a casket burial. A lot of people think I'll scatter, which is perfectly fine. I would just simply say, make sure the EPA thinks that's fine. Waterways are protected, so that may not always be the case. And your family could be charged with dumping fees, because they don't really care what you're putting in the water, it's that you're putting it in the water. So that is something to be keeping in mind. Private property, a lot of them don't like that either. I always find it funny when people are like, I had somebody sneak in and thought that we wouldn't know what it was. We're crematory. We know exactly what it looks like. And they dumped it on the ground. And they're like, well, how did you know? And it's like, well, first of all, you left the box. Second of all, you left the identification coin. And third, it was sitting on top of the ground. We know what it is.
Disney World and Disneyland find piles all the time
Really?
of cremated bodies. And people think they always want to be Disney.
Yeah.
Over here in the corner.
The other thing is leaving at home. So Chuck, you mentioned that. Perfectly fine. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. A lot of the times, what I commonly hear is that the spouse ends up talking to them. So it's like they're there with them. And it's very difficult the longer that goes on, that they can't separate. So usually what happens is that person stays with them until it's time for their burial.
Yeah, we're gonna
Tommy?
dig in- we're gonna dig
Please
into
don't do that.
And so,
Please don't do that.
yes, for Tommy and me, that is a beg. Either that or that the person who has you, so your responsibility is to know what happens to you afterwards. Because I have no children. I hope that one of my 18 nieces and nephews will adore me so much that they will take care of me in my old age. But after I die and their kids come along, they may not even know who I am. They don't have the connection to me. And their grandkids definitely will not. So by the time, if I got to their grandkids' time, they're just kind of like, I don't know what to do. So
And we're
you
gonna
can end up on my doorstep, and we're like, I can't do anything with this legally. Or yes, Tommy.
I get 1 to 3 calls a year from police departments saying that Mr. So-and-so is here, and the family wants us, I thought, well, there's a death that's occurred. No, we have a box of cremains, and they've moved mom into memory care, and she forgot that dad was in the top of the closet.
Yep.
And it happens all the time. That lawsuit I was talking about earlier, this is exactly what that's over.
And this afternoon, we're gonna dig a little deeper into this with the whole.
No pun
lineage
intended.
of it. Yes, pun intended.
So yeah, I mean, perfectly fine, I get it, you know. Just make sure that when your caregiver's time is come, that the family knows that you are part of that care that needs to happen. So that's just an assignment to pass on.
I'm sorry, quick question, and I know Nancy's not here anymore, but is there like a form that we can fill out that will like as part of the will or something, is that put?
She actually brought it up, it was the right of disposition of remains.
I knew that was designated a
But
person though,
that's
but,
not-
It's that
yeah.
form that I put out there,
okay,
it has all that, but nothing takes the place of pre-arranging. Remember, you don't have to prepay,
right,
but pre-arranging
Yeah.
has those details solid.
And
Put
there's,
it in your will.
yeah, your
At least
will.
that's what I was
Yeah.
curious, I didn't know if
Yeah.
that could technically
Yeah.
go in the will.
And if you've made, and then like Nancy's really good, she's doing mine, so like she has a portion in her binder that you put your cemetery stuff in there, so it's all together.
I do not like funeral arrangements in a will, because a will is read sometimes weeks, months after the death. And, you know, I've had cases where people cremated, they read the will, I want to be buried at Woodland. And they go, now they got a guilt thing they got to deal with, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's best to have those arrangements done.
Well, yeah, make your arrangements and talk about them.
Yeah, that's a big thing, is making your arrangements done. It's great to do all the things we talked about, but if you don't sit down with your family and the people that are gonna be directly responsible, you don't want anybody to, oh, by the way, find out that you're a power of attorney or what have you. You wanna have those conversations with all these conversations with families so they understand what I've been to Routson and I did this. I went to Woodland, I picked out my graves. You know, I prearranged this. Have the conversation so that they know about this before you pass, so that they're not trying to figure it out through documents after you pass.
My alarm just went off, so you'll notice that I'm not all the way through my slides. So if you picked up my slide sheet, it is here, so you can at least see the points on there. I will say on anatomical gift, a lot of people have chosen that a perfect solution. However, on that anatomical gift, it will ask you, what do you want done with the remains? Is it staying with school? Is it returning to the family? Or is it to be, you know, direct burial somewhere? So just keep an eye out on that, because if you pick return to the family and the family doesn't know, somebody's gonna be like, wait a minute, they said everything was taken care of. So that could be a problem.
You can keep going a little bit, Angie, because we're gonna have to sit up, so if you wanna keep talking while I put
Okay.
some of the.
And the other thing with anatomical is that I've seen them returned within the week. So the person dies and then because we do the cremations for them, they're at Woodland within a week's time. I've had somebody gone for 3 years. So they must have been a really interesting case. So the family does have to remember that, you know, you can still have a memorial service for that person. That person is passed. They may not be there for memorial, but it is something you can do. But just let the family know that that's what you're doing. Cost. So I brought, it's on the table, our 2024 cost. There's a lot to it. So we tried to put together just a brief sheet. But, you know, again, depending on where you are on the grounds, what you choose, the cost of the space is going to greatly vary. I'll have somebody and they'll say, well, just give me a price range. And it's like, you can have 2,100 for a space, or you can buy a mausoleum for 300,000. Like, I mean, the span is great, you know, so it's, again, what do you want? Where do you want to be? Is there family nearby? And what kind of memorial do you want? And of course, casket or cremation. I can't do anything without knowing those 2 items. But this is the price list for 2024. Every year it changes. So just so you have an idea, because most people have no idea how much this stuff costs. Like I said, you know how much you could expect to pay for a leather jacket. You have no idea how much you're gonna spend on, burial and a memorial. And then you got funeral home, we go hand in hand with the funeral home. Life insurance, good thing to have. Not all cemeteries work with life insurance, so you do need to ask about that. Woodland, we work through a third-party company called C&J. There's multiples out there. Just quickly, what that does is it loans the money to the family to pay off the expenses, because everything has to be paid before burial will happen. So that company, what they do is verify the policy is there, that it is a full policy. They verify the beneficiaries, they verify how much money, and they'll ask if the funeral home is using that same policy. So when we're talking to our group, we're saying, this is what the funeral home is taking, this is what we need. So by the time they finance it, they say the policy is full and it'll pay for everything. Or they'll tell us, like we had the other day, they'll cover everything but $740. So that was out of pocket for the family to pay. It generally takes 48 hours for us to go through that process. And there is a fee that that group charges for the loan of the money. So just something to think about. Some people will be, the fee is could be $400. Some people will be like, I'll just pay it with my credit card. Some people don't have the credit card balance to do that. So life insurance can be quite good for that. We cannot prearrange with life insurance. That is not an option for cemeteries. It is something you can work with funeral homes with, but it's not something that we can do. We only use it at the time of death. And then getting started is pretty much what you guys are doing today. You're learning about the options and the different ways to go about doing things. I'll leave it at there and then see, does anybody have questions for me? Any questions?
You're running out of space?
Actually, we have, we're developing 5 more acres in our back. We have
So you
almost
can
40 acres.
gobble up some of Dayton?
No, we own almost 40 acres
Oh, yeah.
that we haven't even developed.
Okay.
And then in our historic area, we have lots of open space. We started in 1841, didn't get our first backhoe until after World War II.
I've been there.
Yeah. So we have these aisleways and we can start to take those aisleways back. Or we've taken up several roads lately. So we're also creating burial space that way. So we have quite a bit still to develop.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right. Well, then that does it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angie. A couple things to piggyback to let you know. Figuring out cemeteries is a lot like figuring out municipalities. The closer you get to the city, usually the more regulated the cemeteries become. The further into the rural areas you get, the more it's like the wild, wild west. So understand that geographically, cemetery regulations will change. Within cemeteries, like she talked about, row to row, section things will change. And every cemetery has a different perspective on how many bodies you can put in a single grave. Some people will say, hey, you can put 15 cremated bodies in one grave, we don't care. Some have a casket body. So make sure you ask the questions and have the conversation of what the disposition is, just like she said, because every cemetery is different. And it's important to understand that and don't make assumptions when you're going to do that.
Ask the questions first.
What we're going to do now, and one more time, Angie, thank you very much for what you're doing. We're going to have Sam, Tommy, and Erica, and we're going to put them in the hot seats up front, and we're going to talk a little funeral pre-planning. And we wanted to change up the format a little bit and just make it kind of they can introduce themselves, talk about some initial things, and then we're going to make it kind of a panel discussion where you guys can ask questions. So all three of you, if you can make your way up and put you on a hot seat,
Sure.
and then.
Does anybody want to take a break before we get started? Anybody need like a bio break, anything like that?
Bio break.
Bio break.
Bio break.
I'm gonna go old school. Anybody need to pee? All right.